Welcome to the Holistic Life Podcast, where the wisdom of the Word of God lights our path to mind, body, soul, and spirit wellness. Each episode, we delve into living a life that's not just healthy, but wholly aligned with the spiritual principles, exploring the intersection of faith and well-being. Join us as we uncover divine guidance for wellness, meditation, and harmony in life, taking this journey on living fully in His grace. Your transformation, grounded in faith and understanding, starts now. Hey, good day. I want to welcome you back to the Holistic Life Podcast. I am your host, Shelby Frederick, also known as Lady Jules, and we are broadcasting live from the Columbus, Ohio region. Listen, today I want to get into, we are on this week 5 of our wellness integration series. And what I have been doing is helping high achieving women who are in this place where there is integration of the nervous system wellness along with sustainable business systems. And so this is not talking about money-led success. This is talking about wellness-led wealth. Let me say it again. I'm not talking about money-led success, but I'm talking about wellness-led success. Your nervous system determines your capacity, and your capacity determines what your business can hold. So today, you're getting a clear plan. It's not theory. These are practical steps that you can implement this week. We're talking about why capacity sets your ceiling, why breakthrough fades without integration, and how a 20-week runway builds capacity that builds change that holds under pressure. Plus, I'm also going to be sharing a client case that I've been working with. And a client that I've been working with, she went from a 40% overall wellness to a 68 to 75% across her week dimensions. So during this time, we saw that her revenue tripled. She had the same offer. She had the same marketing. She had steadier nervous system that held the consistent action. So if you're tired of just temporary breakthroughs and you are ready for permanent transformation, I want you to stay with me. All right, so let's get into it. So why capacity sets the ceiling? When you think about your strategy is probably fine. And I work with all kinds of business owners, all kinds of high achieving women, business owners, ministry leaders. They're exceptional strategists. They know their industries. They know that their marketing is solid and their offers are just dialed in to the T. But the revenue stays inconsistent. The way that they deliver for their client, it feels chaotic. And they're working 60 plus hours a week and still falling behind. So the problem isn't strategy. The problem is capacity. And your system sets the ceiling, not your strategy. So let me explain by what I mean when I say capacity. I'm going back and circling back to the 8 dimensions of wellness. Excuse me, if you've been following along with me, for the past couple of years, probably since around the pandemic time, I've been talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness. So our capacity isn't just our physical energy. It's holistic wellness across 8 dimensions. So in case you're not for sure, and you haven't heard this before, let me break this down for us. Dimension number 1 is physical. This is your body, your sleep quality, your nutrition, your movement, your energy management. When physical wellness crashes, everything else suffers. You cannot think clearly when you are sleep deprived. You cannot regulate your emotions when your blood sugar is unstable. And you cannot sustain performance when your body is in constant stress response. Dimension two is what we call emotional. This is our nervous system regulation. This is where we get our emotional resilience, all of our coping mechanisms, and most importantly, our self awareness. This is where a lot of high achievers struggle because they can perform well under pressure, but they're operating from a dysregulated state. They are more reactive than they are responsive. In every client call, it requires managing stress response while trying to deliver the value, right? Now, dimension three is spiritual. This is faith, this is purpose, this is our connection to God. This includes our prayer life, all of the spiritual practices that ground you. For women of faith, this dimension, um, this dimension, it matters enormously. It's really, really big because when spiritual wellness crashes, you lose your why because you're executing strategy without soul. That soul, that mind, that will, and the emotions. The business succeeds, but you still feel empty, right? Dimension four is intellectual. This is our learning, our creativity, all of our critical thinking, the mental stimulation, our growth mindset. When this dimension is low, you stop evolving and you start operating from old information. And what happens is you don't challenge your thinking. So when you don't challenge your thinking, your business stagnates because you stopped growing. You stopped growing. Now, when we talk about understanding the next dimension would be your social relationships. Social relationships. This is community, having healthy connections, having the support systems. Those that stay in a place of isolation, it tanks this dimension because every time a crisis hits, you have no one to process with. You have no community that is holding you accountable or to celebrate your wins. So basically, you're carrying everything alone. The sixth dimension is occupational, and this is our career satisfaction. This is where we look at our work life integration. This is where you find your purpose in work. This is where the professional growth is. So you could be financially successful and still score low here. You could be making money doing work that you actually hate, and it's because you have no boundaries. You feel trapped in your own business, your own ministry, your own organization. And this is what we call occupational wellness crash, right? Dimension seven is financial. And this isn't just revenue. This is your relationship with money. This is, do you have an abundance versus a scarcity mindset? This is financial security in your money management. And I've seen women who can make six figures and score 35% in financial wellness because they operate from constant scarcity panic. And so every time there is a money trigger, it triggers stress instead of peace, right? Now, the eighth and the final dimension is what we call environmental. This is your living space, your surroundings, your nature connection, all of your organizational systems. Your environment affects your nervous system constantly. If you have a cluttered workspace, if your home is cluttered, if your office is cluttered, this creates low level stress. So chaotic surroundings keep you dysregulated. You're spending energy managing the environment instead of executing strategy. So here's some key insights that's important to understand about the eight dimensions of wellness. Your weakest dimension determines your ceiling, not your strongest. You can score 90% in 7 dimensions. But if emotional wellness is at 30%, that 30% controls your capacity. Your brilliant strategy gets executed from a dysregulated nervous system. So your big vision, it gets filtered through unprocessed trauma. Your capacity to receive success is now limited by your own ability or inability to regulate emotions. So what happens is the bottleneck wins every time. Every time. Now, what are some overload signals that your body sends? Your body will tell you when your capacity is maxed. But most people, they ignore these signals until they absolutely crash. Some of the signals would be post meeting exhaustion. You finish a client call and you need a whole 30 minutes to recover. The call went fine, but you're depleted. And that's your nervous system spending energy on regulation during the call instead of presence. What about this one? You have a short fuse on sales calls. The potential client asks reasonable questions, but you feel defensive. You feel annoyed. Listen, you're not a jerk, but your nervous system is activated. And so the questions feel like threats every time you are in this place of survival mode. What about the bedroom scroll spiral? You know you need to be asleep, but what do? Scroll anyway. This isn't a lack of discipline. This is your nervous system unable to down regulate on its own. So the scroll, it provides an artificial calm because your body hasn't learned to shift from activation to rest naturally. When we talk about money avoidance, sometimes you don't check your bank account. That used to be me. I wouldn't check it because I already knew. Taking a look at it would stress me out. You have invoices that sit unsent. And it's not because you're bad with money. It's because you're looking at numbers that are now activating your anxiety because your system cannot process. And I'm here to tell you that every one of these signals mean that your nervous system is working harder than it should in order to maintain basic function. And that's capacity you're spending on regulation instead of execution. So let's get into the daily 15. You don't need to have a complex wellness program. You simply need 15 minutes daily that build capacity systematically. So I want to share with you 4 practices that will help you with this. So practice number 1, I call this a 2-minute physiological sigh 3 times a day. And I'm always doing deep breathing. I believe in deep breathing. I believe in taking the deep breaths. But this is what this looks like. This looks like deep breathe in through the nose, a long exhale through the mouth, and repeat it twice. And I want you to do this for 6 minutes total daily. You know what this does? It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And this tells your body that it is safe to down regulate. Right? That's practice number 1. Practice number 2, I call this a protein forward breakfast with fiber. So within 1 hour of waking up, I want you to take 20 to 30 grams of protein plus a fiber source because this stabilizes blood sugar and it prevents all of the afternoon crashes. By doing this, you are supporting steady decision making all day long. right? That's practice 2. Practice 3 is to take a 10-minute walk in daylight just once a day outside as much as you can, because having that daylight on your face, this is what helps to regulate our circadian rhythm. It's going to support quality sleep, and it grounds nervous system in the body, right? Now, let's get into practice 4. Practice 4 is what I'll call a 5-minute cash weekly cash check. Same day, same time. If you have to set an alarm to do it, set an alarm. But I want you to look at one number, and that number is, what is your cash on hand? I want you to write it down and then close the app. This builds financial nervous system tolerance, because numbers now become neutral data instead of emotional triggers. So, again, the total time that I just gave you is 15 minutes daily, plus 5 minutes weekly. This isn't even adding to your schedule, it's optimizing what you're already doing. So, I want to give you an invitation to take the 8 dimensions of wellness assessment this week. It's going to be down in the show notes. It's an app that I created. It's free. It takes 10 to 15 minutes. It's 40 questions across all 8 dimensions. And at the end, you're going to see your wellness map. You're going to see your bottleneck dimension. You're going to see your strength dimension. And you're also going to see personalized recommendations. And I want you to take it. Go ahead and take it before the episode ends. It's in the show notes, because you cannot change what you cannot see. Mhm. And the assessment shows you exactly where capacity work needs to happen. Right? Now, let's get into our next segment. And this is integration beats inspiration. Integration beats inspiration. You've had breakthrough moments before. You've had where that light bulb goes off, and you have clarity where everything clicks, and you see exactly what needs to change. You make the decision, you feel the shift, and then 3 weeks later, what happens? You're right back where you started. And this is a pattern that everyone experiences. And here's why: breakthrough fades without integration. See, your brain caught the vision, but your body is still running the old program. So, insight without integration is going to always fade. But here's what's happening neurologically: you have the breakthrough, and your prefrontal cortex, it lights up. And then you have new neural pathways that begin to fire. So now you're feeling the possibility. But your nervous system has one job, and that job is to keep you alive through pattern recognition. That means it's looking for what's familiar that feels safe. But what's new, it triggers a threat response. Oh, this is something that is new. So I feel threatened. So even when the new thing is exactly what you consciously want, it doesn't happen. So say you decide to wake up at 5 a.m. You build your business, you build the ministry, your alarm goes off, your brain says, well, oh, this is different. And now different equals potentially dangerous. Oh, this might be dangerous. So what do? You hit snooze. You stay in the familiar pattern. You override it with willpower. So day 1 works, day 2 works, day 7, now willpower is depleting. Day 14, you now sleeping through the alarm, and you're back to the old pattern. And you know what just happened? Your brain just protected you from unfamiliar territory. So this isn't moral failure. It has nothing to do with that. This is biology. This is how our bodies work. But with integration work, it teaches your nervous system that the new pattern, this is safe. So it's not through willpower, it's through consistent practice that proves safety over time. Now, the D.D.B path work. This is the framework that I now use with every client. And D.D.B stands for discern, dismantle, and build. When we talk about discern, this is where we're looking at truth versus trauma. Most people cannot tell the difference between their truth and their trauma. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between real danger and familiar discomfort. So your nervous system, it's responding to both the same way. So when you're about to scale your business or you're about to grow the ministry, it hits a new level. When you are stepping into bigger visibility, your body might trigger the same stress response it would if you were facing an actual physical threat. Mhm. That's trauma response masquerading as intuition. But discernment work teaches you to feel the difference. What's actually true versus what's your nervous system's protective pattern. And my friends, this takes time. This takes deep reflection. And oftentimes, somatic, or somatic is body, somatic or body work, it often feels, we have to feel the difference in our body, right? So that's discern phase. Dismantle, this is where you now removing all of the limiting patterns. Because now, once you're able to discern truth from trauma, we dismantle the patterns keeping you stuck. So this is not surface behavior modification. We are talking about neural pathway interruption. Our physical brain has grooved patterns. And this is where our survival responses and the automatic reactions live. These are the patterns that have been reinforced for years and maybe even for decades. So dismantling requires interrupting the pattern consciously, repeatedly, until new pathways form. And I'm here to tell you, this work is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because your nervous system will resist. Because your nervous system, it wants the familiar, even when familiar keeps you stuck. Even when it keeps you stuck. So that's dismantle. Now, when we get to the build phase is where we create sustainable practices. And this is where we're finally building new neural pathways through repetition over time. These are the new patterns that are practiced consistently until they now become automatic. Because your body needs time to trust that the new patterns are safe. But your body needs time. And this, unfortunately, is where most people give up because the building takes longer than dismantling. But this is also where permanent transformation happens. Transformation doesn't happen in the inside. It happens in the embodied repetition. So you don't need an hour-long meditation session. You need micro practices throughout your day. The psychological side that I mentioned earlier, 2 minutes, 3 times a day. Do it before client calls. Do it after difficult conversations. Do it whenever you notice tension building. This is not some woo, 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 woo stuff. This is nervous system science. 2 deep breaths in and a long exhale out. It activates your vagus nerve and it signals to your body, we're safe. I can down regulate. My client that I mentioned, she used this strategy before every sales call. And she noticed her close rate had increased at 40%. It wasn't because her pitch changed, it was because her presence shifted. So a regulated nervous system reads now trustworthy, but a desperate nervous system is going to read pushy. And guess what? Your clients can feel the difference even if they can't name it. So here's how you make the practices stick without relying on motivation. Because motivation, you're not going to always be motivated to change. You're not going to always be motivated to do the work. You have to anchor new practices to your existing calendar events. Don't just say, I'll do breath work. Say, after I pour a cup of coffee or after I have a cup of tea, before I check my phone, I do breath work. It's the existing cue that triggers the new practice. This is what we call habit science. The environmental cues will beat motivation every single time. So, again, for example, after your next team meeting, do the 2 minute sigh before the next call. While your computer boots up, do morning journaling of 3 gratitudes. During your lunch prep, take a 10-minute walk outside. Before the bed routine starts, review tomorrow's top 3 priorities. You see how it is? The calendar events that you already do now becomes the trigger for new practices. And it removes what we call decision fatigue. And it now makes it automatic. And listen, forget about having all of the complex habit trackers. You just need one simple question daily. Did I do the practice? Yes or no? Not how well did I do it, just did I do it? And I use a simple spreadsheet, 7 columns for 7 days a week, 4 rows for 4 practices, and I place a check mark in it, or it's going to be blank, and that's it. On Sundays, I do a review. What was my compliance percentage this week? We want to aim for at least 70%, not 100%, because perfectionism kills consistency. But this tracking, it does 2 things. First, it creates awareness because now you see the patterns. Oh, I miss breath work every Wednesday because team meetings run late. So guess what? I need to make an adjustment. The second thing that it does is it builds momentum. It builds momentum. When you see a string of check marks, it makes you feel good. Why? Because you don't want to break the streak. And week over week, you're now watching integration happen, not through inspiration, but through repetition. All right. Now, I want to talk about what I do in 20 weeks. 20 weeks. And why 20 weeks? Because most programs promise transformation in 30 days. But I'm here to tell you that that is a lie. You cannot have real transformation in 30 days because real neural rewiring, it takes time. Your nervous system, it needs repetition under the varying conditions to trust a new baseline. So here's what actually happens across 20 weeks. Break it down in phases. So in phase 1, that would be in weeks 1 through 4. This is the awareness and the dismantling. In the first month, you see the patterns very, very clearly. You can recognize your automatic responses and then you begin interrupting them. In this phase, it feels uncomfortable because you're aware, but you're not yet changed. Your brain knows what needs to shift, but your body is still running the old program. So week 1, you notice how activated you actually are. The practices, they feel awkward. They feel so awkward that you want to skip them. But then you go on to week 2, and now you're seeing small glimpses of calm, mostly still forced, but your compliance may be 50 to 60%. By week 3, now your practices are starting to feel less foreign. You may be at 65, 70%, but it still requires willpower. By week 4, guess what you're doing? By week 4, you're building new neural pathways because your body is now experimenting. Is this safe? Can we trust this? Now, from a business standpoint, you're still minimal. You're laying foundation, but the results come later. Let's get into phase 2. Phase 2 would be weeks 5 through 8. This is now where practice becomes pattern. So in the second month, new habits start forming, but they still feel forced. Every regulation practice requires conscious effort. So in week 5, the first time a practice feels a natural instead of forced, you're now showing progress. Week 6, your compliance is starting to hit that 70 to 75%. Your nervous system is now learning. By week 7, you notice when you skip practices because your body feels different now. That's awareness expanding. By week 8, your practices, hey, this feels more automatic now. Mm. You have less willpower that's needed, and you're starting to integrate. Now, the business impact at week 8, you now see the small improvements, maybe better sleep, maybe slightly less reactivity. You're now seeing your energy be more stable. All right, let's get into phase 3. Phase 3 is weeks 9 through 12, and this is where integration begins. This is the third month. The shift happens. New patterns start feeling natural instead of forced. Week 9, you're now regulating without thinking about it. This is the integration starting. By week 10, your compliance is at about 80% because now your body now trusts the new baseline. By week 11, you're testing the practices under stress. This is the client stress, the revenue dip. You're saying, do the practices still hold? And by week 12, you know what? They hold because your nervous system has rewired enough to trust new patterns under pressure. So the business impact at week 12, hey, you see the noticeable difference now. You now see that your client delivery is so much smoother. You now see that your decision quality is now better. And your team notices that you're more consistent. Now, phase 4, this is weeks 13 through 20. This is embodiment and activation. So the final 2 months, you're operating from an integrated state naturally. Weeks 13 through 16, this new baseline is fully established. So the practices aren't practices anymore. They're just how you operate. Weeks 17 through 20, now you have a higher capacity without forcing it. You're not managing new patterns now. You are the transformation. So the business impact at week 20, you are now a different person operating the business, operating the ministry, operating the organization. So the same strategy works better because the operator is regulated. So why the 30-day pushes fail? It's because 30-day programs end at week 4. It's right when your nervous system is starting to trust the new pattern. You get the awareness and maybe some practice, but not integration, not embodiment, and not activation. So what happens? The breakthrough fades and you blame yourself. Actually, you just didn't give biology enough time. And when we talk about even the sprint culture optimizes for speed, but integration work optimizes for sustainability. One creates temporary results and predictable crashes, and the other creates permanent capacity expansion. So when you review your cadence every week, you're going to ask yourself, what was my compliance percentage? What got in my way? And how do I adjust? Monthly, you're going to ask, well, what's my average energy level compared to last month? What dimension needs more focus? Quarterly, you're going to retake the 8 dimension assessment. Are your scores moving up? Where am I stuck? This review cadence, it prevents drift. It maintains your momentum and it keeps you honest about what's working. 10 minutes weekly, 30 minutes monthly, 15 minutes quarterly. That's the total time investment. It's less than 1 hour per month for review, but the returns are going to compound forever. Now, you could do this work independently, and many people do successfully. But here's when you need support. If your compliance stays below 60% for 3 weeks straight, you need accountability. If you're not sure which or practices address your bottlenecks, then you need some guidance. If your business or your ministry or organization is scaling and you need nervous system capacity to match growth, you need a structured pathway. If you've tried self guided integration before and it didn't stick, then you need group support. So the D.D.B breakthrough cohort, it starts January the 6th. That's 8 weeks of foundation work. This is identifying the bottleneck, dismantling the patterns, and building practices. The Activate experience starts March 9th, and this is 12 weeks. This is the embodiment work. This is building capacity and sustaining under the load. You also can bundle them both together. 24 weeks, a complete pathway, foundation through activation. But more on that in a minute. First, let me tell you about a client who proved this model. So for this video purpose, and of course I got permission. Her name is Maria. Maria came to me in a crisis. Her business was successful on paper, but her revenue was hitting at those 6 figures. She had a team of 3. She had a good reputation in her industry, but she was drowning. She was drowning. She was working 70-hour weeks. Her client delivery, it felt chaotic. Her revenue was feast or famine. And she couldn't scale without burning out. So she thought that she needed better systems. She thought that she needed more automation. She thought that she even needed different team members. And so I gave her the 8 dimensions assessment, and here is what we found. Her overall wellness was at a 40%. This was a critical zone. Her physical wellness was 25%. She was sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night restlessly. Her nutrition, she was skipping meals and just running on coffee and energy drinks. Her movement, she had zero intentional exercise. In her energy, she was experiencing constant exhaustion. In her emotional wellness, it was at a 30%. Her regulation, she was operating from survival mode every single day. Her reactivity, she had short fuse with her team and with her clients. And for her coping mechanism, she was numbing with Netflix and wine. Her financial wellness was at a 35%. She still had a money mindset of scarcity, panic. It was constant. Her relationship with revenue, it was terror. It wasn't celebration. Remember, I told you that she was already making 6 figures. Her spending, it was chaotic. She had no clear boundaries. In her security, she felt like everything could collapse at any moment. Now, the other 5 dimensions ranged from 55 to 70%. So it wasn't terrible, but those 3 dimensions at 25 to 35%, those were her bottlenecks. So her business strategy was fine, but her nervous system could not hold the load that her business required. So we started with 4 practices. They were simple, they were sustainable, and they were addressing her 3 bottleneck dimensions. So we went through practice 1. We set a sleep boundary. For practice 2, we did morning breath work. For practice 3, we did a protein breakfast. She used the wellness coach, custom GPT that I have. And then practice 4, she had a weekly money date with herself where she would review her numbers, looking at her cash position, her revenue, her one decision need. And so in the first month, her compliance was at 60%. She missed some days, and there were times where she felt discouraged because she couldn't yet see the results. And for her, her sleep was the hardest because she had gotten used to all of the late nights. Her breath work, it still felt awkward. Her money date was still triggering her anxiety. But I told her, Maria, your nervous system is learning. Give it time. Give yourself some grace. And then the second month, her compliance was about 75%. This is now her practice was starting to feel automatic. So now she's getting about 6 to 7 hours of sleep most nights. Her energy moved from like a 4 out of 10 to a 5.5 out of 10. So she was seeing some small improvement, but it was still noticeable. Her emotional reactivity, she would catch herself before she started snapping on people. And then her money date, it was still uncomfortable for her, but she could still look at her numbers for a full 20 minutes without disregarding them. By the third month, her compliance was at 80%. So now her practices are feeling natural. She's getting a consistent 7 hours of sleep. Deep rest started happening. Her energy was now at a 7 because this was transformation for her. Everybody's going to be different. She felt with her team. Her team meetings now felt calmer because she had emotional regulation. And now she's reviewing her numbers without clenching her stomach. And this is where the integration happened. It wasn't willpower anymore, it was just how she operates. And so When she retook the assessment, her physical wellness went from a 25 to a 75%. Her emotional wellness went from 30 to 70%. Her financial wellness went from 35 to 72%. And overall, her overall wellness was at a 68%. But can I tell you what mattered for her business? Her revenue actually tripled from 150K to 450K. And I want to be very, very clear. She didn't change one thing. She didn't change her offer. She didn't overhaul her marketing. She didn't even hire a new team. It was the same offer, the same marketing, the same team. But what changed? Her nervous system could now hold what she was building. Mm. So, listen, the lesson for you today and what I'm trying to share is that you don't need to overhaul everything. You simply need to address your bottleneck. So, Maria's bottleneck was physical, emotional, and financial wellness. Yours might be different. So, take the assessment, see your map, choose the practices that address your weak dimensions, and then start with a 70% compliance as your target. Not perfection, but consistency. And most importantly, give it some time. Again, weeks 1 through 4 is awareness. Weeks 5 through 8 is practice. Weeks 9 through 12 is integration. That's when it's beginning. But the real transformation shows up around 3 to 6 months, not week 2. And when it shows up, you're going to see that your business performance follows, your ministry performance follows, your organization performance follows. And it's not from a new strategy, it's from an expanded capacity. All right. We've covered a lot, and I know that I went a lot longer than what I normally do, but I really want to help us to understand that your capacity sets your ceiling. And the 8 dimensions of wellness determine that capacity. Integration beats inspiration, and the D.D.B path work makes breakthrough stick. 20-week work runway, it builds change that actually holds under the load. It's 4 phases from awareness to activation. And I shared with you a real client case that proves the model from 40% to 68 to 75%. Her revenue tripled. Same strategy, but steadier systems. So, what's your actions for this week? I always leave you with some call to action. Action 1 is to take the 8 dimensions assessment. It's free. It takes 10 to 15 minutes. The link is down in the show notes. You're going to see your wellness map. You're going to see your bottleneck. You're going to see your strength and also have some personalized recommendations. And I want you to do this before the week ends because you cannot change what you cannot see. Your action 2 is to pick 2 practices from the Daily 15 that address your bottleneck dimension. Whether it's physical wellness, emotional wellness, financial wellness, I want you to start Monday and track your compliance and aim for 70%. And action 3 is to decide if you want support. You could do this independently, but if you want structure, accountability, and guidance, the D.D.B Breakthrough Cohort starts January the 6th. That's 8 weeks. That's the foundation work where we take your assessment results and we build integration practices for your bottleneck. All right. We have the activation experience. That's going to start March the 9th. That's 12 weeks of working with us, of embodiment work, building that nervous system capacity. All right. This is somatic integration. This is capacity expansion. This is real world application. This is for women who want results guaranteed. This is for those of you who need structure and who are done fighting it alone. All right. All of the links are going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us on today. Your capacity is waiting to expand, and your nervous system is ready to learn. 15 minutes daily, 2 practices this week, assessment completed. That's your starting point. If you want the full pathway, January the 6th and March 9th, both programs, 20 weeks. Your business, your ministry, your organization needs you regulated. Your clients need your grounded presence, and you deserve sustainable success. So start with the assessment, and I will see you on next week. This is Shelby Frederick, also known as Lady Jules, signing off for this week's Holistic Life Podcast. Blessings.
Thank you for joining us on the Holistic Life Podcast, where our foundation is the Word of God and our path is wellness in His light. We hope today's episode enriches your journey to a life of health and spiritual fulfillment. Remember, each step toward holistic living is a step closer to embodying His teachings. For continued inspiration, follow our journey. Until next time, embrace your faith, nurture your entire being, and watch your life bloom in His glory. We'll catch you on the airways. Be blessed.